Hello and welcome everyone to the 2024 coverage of the Kilborne in the USA tournament. This is an exciting tournament for us because once a year that we choose something that is somewhat local and somewhat new and somewhat off script. We didn't really plan this one until someone decided to join us. Big shout out and thank you to our sponsors, first of all, that made this happen, that made not only the tournament happen, but also boosted the added cash, helping make it a B tier. On top of that, we have one of my good friends, Seth Brown, helping host the tournament. We also have Bobcat Buckley, who's tournament director. So this is just a really cool event and a very homey vibe. And we also got to film Michael Johansen for the first time ever. So before we get too excited, I just want to welcome our guest in the booth, Eli Brandt, who's coming from all the way from New Hampshire just for this one tournament. How are you doing? Thanks for coming down, man.
Oh, I'm doing great, Raivis. It's a pleasure to be back here on Greatest Media Team and to play with this legend right here, Michael Johansen. This guy, I've been watching him since I first started playing disc golf, and I played this tournament partially just for the opportunity to compete against him.
Well, we love hearing that because, I mean, Seth told me that Eli's coming down, and I was like, what? I'm definitely going to start helping film this one now. So here we go. Filming out the rest of the card is Brandon Brown, who's coming from Tennessee, and one of the highest rated players that you're going to see here, 1021. But before we get to the coverage, let's talk about some of the notes here. Eli, you got to protect your lead, man. You're up 2 strokes. It's insane to see that.
Yeah. Once I heard you were going to be coming into town and filming this thing, I knew I had to step it up in round 3 and make sure to put myself in position on the lead card here. And I got to battle it out with MJ, and it was a blast. One of my best rounds of all time.
You absolutely are coming off a ridiculous round, a 10.58 off the shorts, and we're going to see some longer tee shots coming off on this round. We're going to play the long to shorts. As you can see the drone coverage, it took a long way to get to just to this hole 2 basket, 486 feet, par 4. What are you going to be ripping here, Eli? First throw.
I'm throwing a construct from Thought Athletics here. So hole 1 is a little bit quirky. You've got just a line of trees with no real gap between them. So I like to attack this one with a bit of a turnover, kind of open up the gaps a little bit more, set myself up for a short second shot.
It's an interesting hole 1 because, first of all, they call it hole 2, so the number system is going to be all thrown off for you guys. But you have a lot of options. As you can see, Michael Johansen is going to be throwing his roller here option, which is just incredible play, and he gets really, really far up there. And I feel like he just has this down to a science now, by far, because he's a local, and this is, his home course almost, Charlotte. Anything Charlotte is now his, I would call.
Yeah, the roller is definitely a smart move on this one. A vertical disc takes up less horizontal space than one flying through the air, so it makes those gaps between the trees a lot bigger. This right here is Brandon Brown. He's a military man. As you said, 1021 rated from Knoxville, Tennessee. He's ripping on a forehand here. Sponsored by Prodigy.
Yeah, great player.
Here we have George Christas Jr. out of Granite Falls, North Carolina, teeing off. Mentioned to us before he started that this was his first time playing on film, so I'm excited to see how he does. He's got a little tight window, and this is a theme that you're going to see a lot on this course, is if you're off the fairway, the scrambling is extremely difficult.
So I was surprised to see none of the players really committed to the early right side where there's a gap to kind of shoot from the short tee pad. You guys kind of attacked it on the left-hand side, kind of deep end. Did that ever cross your mind to come to the right side?
Yeah, in practice I was looking at that gap, but the thing is, if you push it a little bit too straight, you see on the right side of your screen, you can get pinched off. And if you find yourself on that far right-hand side of the fairway, it's almost impossible to get up and down. So I figured just take it the luck play, and even if you hit one of the first trees, you'll still have a tight gap to scramble in the basket.
All weekend.
It's a pretty daunting first hole. Meanwhile, look at Michael Johansen. He's right up there.
The roller will get you. It'll get through the trees 9 times out of 10, whereas the air shot will only get through maybe half the time, if that. And you see George is off on the right side where the trees are extremely thick, and he has almost nothing from there, just a layup.
Brandon getting the memo, the 3 memo. What a great birdie to start the round for him. He's only a few strokes back, and he's the highest rated player, so he's definitely going to be pushing both of you guys, Michael Johansen and you, because that's who he needs to be gunning right now.
Yeah, that was a great opening putt right there, that 25 to 30 foot range, get the confidence up. And here I am about a similar distance, maybe 22, 23 feet.
Yeah, good hit. Confidence booster to start. And do you know what MJ threw on the first hole? Because that was something special to get all the way up where he was and have that easy pitch up.
Yeah, MJ was ripping on a Z Sting. And that putt.
His first straddle putt of the day. I mean, he must have had a ton of opportunities to putt on the shorts. I'm surprised that was his first one. What are your thoughts on hole 3 here, your second hole of the day?
This is another one of those daunting tight gaps off the tee, and it's a bit of a strange shape because you have initial trees right to your right that are blocking you from swinging in a hyzer. But then as you go up the fairway, you have a bunker of trees on the left-hand side, which punish the early fade. So you have to push it straight and then fade hard at the end. And hopefully you'll find yourself out in the open, at which point you'll have a wooded technical upshot to get to the basket.
It's a really pretty hole, and it's kind of the theme at this course where you're going to have to hit an initial gap, and then you're just going to have to either let it fade or turn, but you can let it ride. And this is one of the more open ones where you get rewarded for a special drive like that. Nice shot. What'd you throw there?
That was that was an ESP Swarm from Discraft, so extremely overstable. I like chopping it over and trying to match the shape of the fairway. Meanwhile, you see MJ throw a really pretty shot here. He goes with a flippier disc. I believe he's throwing a Scorch, and he's flipping it through the gap as opposed to the force over shot, which has more distance potential, but it requires a lot more skill and touch to throw.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, Brandon's just going with his A3 here, which is a little surprising, something very slow. I mean, with his power, he can get a lot up there. He's kind of just choosing to just, lay off the guns a little bit for us.
And this is what you'll see often at this course is if the tee shot is a little bit off, you get stymied up in some really tough positions, and it makes par best case scenario.
So 2 completely different holes, hole 2 and hole 3 here. Meanwhile, they average very similarly, and they birdied about the same too. So I feel like one's got to be harder than the other, but somehow this plays just as exactly the same.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's all in that that initial gap on hole 2. Because hole 1, you're almost guaranteed to have an opportunity to get up and down for the birdie. It's just whether or not you're going to have an easy shot. And here, if you hit the initial gap, you're going to have a much easier time scrambling for birdie.
Mm-hmm.
Here, there's really one main option. It's kind of difficult to see, but there's a stump there, and you'll see in the fairway right where my disc is flying, and that's the largest gap to approach the green from.
See, you've only been here for 3 days, and you already know the local lines, man. How many rounds did you get to play outside of the Kilborne tournament? Just one, right?
Just one round on longs to longs. So,
wow.
The majority of these holes is my first time playing them.
Yeah, I think Seth was like on Wednesday night, he told me Eli's coming down, and I just shook my head, and I was like, he's never even played the courses.
Yeah, well, luckily most of the lines are. It's you can determine what's the highest percentage shot relatively easily. It's just what you're most confident with hitting the gap at the time. George lining up a par save.
Hey, good putt by George there. He's actually one of the most solid putters I've ever seen in Charlotte. You're going to see a lot of makes from him, and this is just to kind of start the waters here. That was not easy because he had to keep it super straight of that tree.
Yeah, and with the unsuccessful pitch out on the second shot, it seemed like bogey was imminent, but he's able to scramble and get up and down, and that's what you have to do on this course.
That is a great point. He did save that par there. Now, you're coming off some big wins, including the Brewster Ridge Open. Was that your biggest win ever?
Oh, yeah, by far. So that was my first A tier. I was just unconscious the entire time. It was really an incredible experience. All my friends were there supporting me and whatnot, so I'm just trying to carry that confidence over to this tournament.
Well, it's great to see you coming all the way from New England, battling some of the Charlotte legends here, including Michael Johansen. I can't get over that we got to film MJ here. Tell me more about hole 4 here.
Well, hole 4 is pretty straightforward. You've got a large gap here on the right side of the fairway. You just want to throw a flat shot or maybe a hyzer flip that goes straight for a majority of the flight and then just has a subtle fade at the end. And this is one of my favorite parts about Charlotte disc golf is there you have a sense of freedom to throw shots in the woods, whereas in New Hampshire and up in New England, there'd be about 30 additional trees on this fairway.
Mm-hmm. In the initial fairway, too. Like, you would have hit something right then.
Yeah, pretty much. I missed my line by about 3 feet to the left, but the shape was correct, and that's sometimes all it takes on more open fairways like this.
And I'm pretty sure I saw you just throw an FD1. Is that something that you're putting in your bag recently?
Yeah, I bought this disc the day before at Another Round. Shout out to Another Round. That's just a shop unlike any other. We don't have stuff like that up in New England. It's a place where you can socialize with your disc golf friends and pick up a few discs, watch the Pro Tour. It's just a surreal spot.
Well, I'm glad you got to soak it in a little bit because that's what it's all about, Charlotte. Let's see what MJ's throwing here on hole 4.
Yeah, throwing a Z Scorch, and that's pretty much perfect. He'd like a little bit more fade at the end, but he's going to be down there with a putt.
And Christas looks like he's actually sponsored by Aha Shack, which is one of our sponsors for the tournament, too. So it's great to see that representation from both sides.
Let me see.
Yeah, he hits down a little early off the tee, a bit of a late release. He's going to be scrambling again, and that bush is right in his way.
Just like we drew it up. Good shot.
That was a great shot.
That was really a great shot to get even a chance to save the par. He had to go outside around this back fairway that you see Brandon putting from right now.
He took his M3 from a drive, and then that was his PA3. That's what he jumps putts with.
Didn't quite get the reach on that putt.
See if MJ can get the solo 2 so far. One thing we didn't mention yet is that in the notes, it mentioned that it was 107-degree real feel. For you guys, it's probably even more than that because it's your second round. It's your second day. I mean, exhaustion a factor at all?
Oh, 100%. So my buddy Aaron Albert and I flew down on Friday. We stayed with Seth Brown, and we went out and played a few practice rounds on Friday, and it was a heat index of 115. So we were just pounding water and electrolytes, just trying to stay hydrated and stay energized for the event. I think over the 3 days, I was probably drank 5-6 gallons of water. It was no joke.
Yeah, well, welcome to the South, Eli. So here's hole 5, actually one of my favorite holes. It really rewards a straight shot. You kind of have to get sneaky with this one tree, committing to the left or right, to the right of it. I would say that most people, if you have a good forehand, might opt for a forehand as long as they don't get a big fade. And it's about 397 feet, probably plays more like 410 because it's slightly uphill. Ever so slightly.
And here we see the theme of the course again, a very tight and demanding tunnel off the tee. So goal number 1 is just hit that gap, and anything else is a bonus.
Yeah. So you're not even worrying about kind of committing to the tree. You just want to get as far as you can.
Yeah, just throw a straight shot. If I miss right of the tree, I'll have a putt. If you miss left of the tree, you'll have a putt. See Brandon here going with the flippy play, flipping it towards the basket, and that's just That's what you're looking for there.
That's a good pro tip. That was his F5. I wouldn't expect that to see in his bag, actually.
We have Michael Johansen throwing the scorch just like he did on the last hole. Nice flippy disc. He knows how to work the angles with that thing. He'll be flipping that uphill. He's gonna be down in the middle of the fairway.
Yeah, he's committing to the gap, and he just wants to get up there. Christas actually looks like he had a very similar shot, and I think it was at this point that he told us that it was his first time being filmed, and I just told him, "Hey, man, just do you. Keep playing you." And Michael Johansen is going to take his layup here. So this average 3.08. No.
No.
Ooh. Sick. That's the longest putt I've seen all year on GMT.
What a great putt. That was probably all of 80 feet, maybe 90 feet. See him run. He's going to be running that down for a long time. That was a fantastic putt.
Like I said, he's one of the best putters in Charlotte. He's already made a few really good circle twos. Check this one out, though. This is circle 3. Easily circle 3.
Bang. Dead center. He got the pop on at that time. It was in pretty much the entire flight. That was an incredible putt. It's a great way to bounce back from kind of a slow start.
Is this where your drive landed?
Yeah, just outside the circle.
Oh, you pumped that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a disappointing one to miss. That just outside the circle range is one where I want to be connecting 75, 80% of the time. And it's the same thing for Brandon. A couple disappointing misses.
But it is really hot. It is your second round. It is a 400-foot shot, slightly uphill, so it plays a little further. And take a look at the stats. There's only 3 birdies. So, to be in company with George is high caliber. This is quite the hard hole that you guys are playing, one of the more difficult ones.
100%. When you're battling MJ, though, the guy doesn't make very many mistakes. So every time you have an opportunity to gain a stroke or a look, you have to just capitalize.
Absolutely.
Here we have hole number 6, which is our 5th hole of the round. It's an incredibly difficult par 3. I believe they're calling it a par 4 here. It's a late flipping backhand is probably the ideal shot unless you have an absolute nuke of a forehand. And same thing as the last hole, extremely tight gap off the tee. Want to take a flippy disc and throw it on hyzer and late flip it. You see George there just not getting on the hyzer release.
He got a terrible kick, so let's see if he can save even just the par. So it does say par 4 on the stats. What did you throw there? That was really good.
Oh, that's a construct. Just the same disc I threw on hole 1.
Wow. That was
got me up there. I'll have a pretty easy 3. That shot, I just want to release it flat instead of on a touch of hyzer, so it'll actually get the full ride to the right, but totally happy with that result.
And Brandon was taking his H1 there, just couldn't commit to the left of that. He would have to throw it just a little harder. That must be a very stable disc.
Jay throwing the classic Z. He was throwing this one all weekend long.
Shot shape for that hole. Holy. He's so good at those. I've been watching that shot for 8 years. When he was in his prime in 2018, when he was 1035 rated, I mean, he's still one of my idols. And I just remember him at Iron Hill just puring everything with his Comet. And then he would go to New England, Smugs, and doing the same thing. I mean, I love the consistency in him and the fight and the drive. It's just great to see him still playing, too, especially local events like this.
And one thing we haven't mentioned yet is if you look at MJ the next time he's throwing, you'll see a black wristband on his right wrist. He's actually suffering from a bit of a wrist injury right now. He was talking the whole round. He was saying he doesn't have any touch anymore. He said 10 times out of 10 he'd be throwing a backhand on the shot.
Even something like that, he would be throwing a backhand, right?
Yeah, but his wrist just prevents him from getting that touch and that extra bit of spin that he's used to getting. So it just goes to show how good of a player he is, that he's, pushing for the win with an injured wrist.
Yeah. I think that was pretty decent. Let's see if you can can this putt first, though. Yeah, you've been feeling it. Nice putt there. Very smooth. Way to come back after the missed putt on the previous hole, but overall, your putt is looking good.
Yeah, that one definitely. It's still early in the round, but that one felt like a must make. Got to make a statement. I'm here to win this thing. And there's George with continuation of what we've been seeing. Another big putt.
Yeah. And you see the stats there, 15 birdies, averaging 3.46. So one of the easier holes that you guys played today. You have a 5-stroke lead. Do you feel that, that's enough or no?
Oh, no, not at this point. Like I was saying earlier, MJ just doesn't make mistakes. Brandon is obviously charging.
Yeah. But
Even though
5
he's had a few pars in a row here, he's still charging.
If you had 5 strokes at the bro, would you feel more comfortable?
Oh no, it's not a matter of feeling comfortable necessarily. It's I'm here to get birdies, and there's no point in thinking where the competitors are. You just got to keep trying to play your game and birdie the next hole.
I love it. You and Harry have a very, very similar mentality. Talk about hole 7 here, please.
Hole 7, 321 feet, another extremely tight gap off the tee. This one is almost a mandatory forehand skip shot, unless you're really, really talented at throwing flippy mid-ranges or flippy fairway drivers on a backhand. So you just want to throw an overstable disc low and hard and try to get a skip off the hard pan.
This is a very difficult shot if you don't have a forehand. I was practicing this hole and I could never get it to turn really right at the point that I needed it to. So let's see what MJ does, because he's not predominantly a forehand player. He's mostly backhand, and that's kind of where most of the backhand players are landing. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, one of the best in the game at throwing that flippy disc, and even MJ unable to get it far enough to the right. But he'll still be out there in MJ range. He'll have an opportunity.
Absolutely, and he can can that in his sleep. I mean, have some coffee and then can a 90-footer, no problem. Here's Brandon. He's going to be taking that H1 again. This is going to be a pump. He has all the distance. Yeah, that's a good shot. And he's going to be rewarded with a maybe 30-footer, 25. There was a lot of baseball talk during this round and golf talk.
There was. It was really refreshing. There wasn't necessarily a whole lot of talk about what's going on during the round. Michael Johansen's an open book when it comes to disc golf history. He's been living in this area his whole life, so it was really awesome to get to talk to him and learn a little bit about the history of Charlotte disc golf.
Totally agreed. You missed one there, but you can't be too upset. I mean, that was pretty far. Oh, MJ! I jinxed him with the coffee.
That was him putting for 2. He threw a Z Sting off the tee, so that was the same disc he threw for a roller on hole 1. Right on line, just a little bit low.
And here is Brandon. He's putting with his PA3s, soft 300s, if anybody wanted to know. That looked like a good putt. Right in the chains. Had you heard of Brandon Brown before this round ever, or this tournament?
No, never. There's so many talented players in the Southeast. It's just it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to keep up with them. I mean, there's as many 1,000-rated players in North Carolina alone as there are in the entirety of New England. So it's an entirely different ball game down here.
I think I might have met him at MVP Open many years back, and I was very surprised because he was a very good player, and I had followed his card and somebody else. Hole 8 looks like a simple hyzer, or could be a simple hyzer, but you got to keep it low. What are your thoughts here?
Well, this one is pretty much the definition of a must-get birdie at this level. You have about a 20-foot wide gap off the tee. You just want to throw a stable disc flat and firmly and ride it up the hill and get yourself a close putt for birdie.
Yeah, Brandon threw that very well. That was his distortion, which must be one of those. Is that one of the newer discs? I think it is, right?
That was one of the Kevin Jones signature series discs.
probably worth a lot more money now. And MJ in a great spot. George looking like he's going to be in a great spot. So you're going to have a little work to do. This hole averaged 2.58, and there was 13 birdies, 8 pars, and 3 bogeys.
Yeah, and I'm making it look like the hardest hole on the course right now. This is.
Are you thinking about New England golf at that moment?
I guess so. That kind of forehand scramble shot is something you have to throw a lot up here. However, it's just a shot that I was struggling with for some reason all weekend long. That little forehand turnover, forehand Annie, I just couldn't seem to get the release point correct, and it comes to bite me on this hole. One of the easiest holes on the course, and I'll be there 20 feet for bogey.
So it looks like MJ's going to get the birdie there, so it could be a 2-stroke swing. And let's see a replay there. Nice confident putt by MJ there. He putts so fast and so hard.
Yeah, probably the single fastest player I've ever played with. Just grabs the disc, steps right up, and lets it rip.
It'd be interesting to see who would be quicker, Owen Hamilton or him. Owen Hamilton might have been the quickest I've ever seen. Even Simon said, you make sure you have a camera on him at all times.
Yeah, so imagine playing a doubles round against those guys. They'd be done with the round before you're finished with the front nine.
So a couple birdies, actually 3 birdies, 1 bogey. We're moving on to 8B. So that was 8A. And this is kind of similar where you kind of have a technical short approach hyzer. You can take a mid-range or a putter, but you have to keep it very low. This is actually more difficult than the other one because the gap is really, really tight here.
Yeah, for sure. It looks relatively wide off. Oh, I guess as you zoom away, it doesn't look as big, but it's probably a 7 or 8 foot wide gap. This is more or less what we're used to seeing up here in New Hampshire. And Brandon pipes it right down the middle. He's gonna have a look for birdie there.
Yeah, that was his P Model S. A really good throw.
MJ ripping on a banger. He's probably thrown this disc.
Wow.
He's thrown this disc more times than I've thrown any.
Yeah, he threw his putter there. Oh, what a kick of the day right there.
Dude,
Yes.
yes.
That's the correct thing.
Put on hyzer, you get rewarded. All right, so you're going to your Annie, your forehand. You feeling more confident?
Not necessarily. The shot still doesn't feel that good coming out of my hand, but it's the only thing I've ever tried on this hole, so
Yeah.
it's what I'm gonna stick with.
It seems like you got up there, though.
Yeah, it got a nice slide on the ground. Oh yeah, Brandon.
Cash, money. Man, we are seeing some excellent putting during this round. We hope you enjoy it. GMT bringing the heat.
You can definitely see why Brandon earned that 10-21 rating. Throws good shots and makes good putts. That's what it takes.
Great putt.
That was clean. I like his step putt.
Yeah, okay, yeah. She wasn't there.
He's got a lot of power behind his putt. 22 feet.
Yeah, this is just a must make. After the bogey on the last hole, can't be bleeding strokes on every shot. Got to clean it up a little bit.
15 birdies, averaging 2.42.
Does anybody need a water? I'm gonna jump over and grab one.
Yeah, drink some water, guys, because we'll be back for the back nine here. That was the front nine coverage. We really hope you enjoyed. Oh, actually, I am so thrown off by these numbers. I'm so sorry. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hole
2 is hole 1 and hole 10 is hole 9.
Oh my gosh.
This is an extremely tricky hole. It's not necessarily the most difficult shot shape to throw, but you'll see here from the tee, the basket is almost at a 90-degree angle from the edge of this tree line here. So you want to throw a disc that will go to the edge of the trees and then fly right. which is what Brandon's doing here. It's really a flip of the coin if you're going to have a look or not.
So you can see Brandon's disc actually hit something and he kicked left there. So he's not going to even be in a position for the birdie, unfortunately. But he hit that angle perfectly. So let's see if MJ can copy that angle. He actually put it higher, and I think he's going to be in a really good spot.
Yeah, it didn't look like it was going quite as far right as you need to go. I was kind of confused playing this hole the first few times. It's not very obvious if you need to throw an overstable disc on an Anheuser angle, such as George is doing here, or if you need to throw a flippy disc flat. Because both shots fly to the right, but they have different characteristics in terms of how they finish on the ground.
Yeah, so what you just did there seemed a little early, in my opinion, when we'll see where you landed, but it looked like everybody else was hitting the gap a little more clearly on the later end there, and you went a little early. So I would have expected you to be 25 feet to the right of the basket or something like that.
Yeah, I don't even know what to do on this hole, really. I mean, I'm sure if someone were to play this hole 100 times, you'd be able to figure out the exact right shot, and that's just the home field advantage that
right
a lot of these local players have.
Yeah. See, even MJ said he called it. He got it, and he's still about 40. Oof, almost.
Yeah, and if you cut the corner early like I did, there is a bit less stuff in the way, and I was fortunate to get to this spot for sure.
Throw off the tee?
I threw a Pathfinder from
great
top
shot.
space.
We got the thumbs up. Nice.
Yeah. Well, I was throwing a different disc off the tee the first two rounds, and I took pars both times, and I switched to the Pathfinder and got it the second and third round. So Pathfinder's the way to go.
That was a great shot and great birdie there. So you're 3 strokes ahead of Michael Johansen, the legend. 5 strokes ahead, Brandon Brown, who's making a huge charge, and then a couple more on George Christas. What a great card here. You're shooting 6 down this round. Are you feeling good? You feeling great? You feeling just as good as you did on your 1050 round, or what are your thoughts here on the front nine?
Oh yeah, I mean, besides that bogey on what is it, hole 8, I believe. I really couldn't ask for a better start. So I'm just going to try to keep things rolling, not think about the scores too much, just keep playing my own game.
Love it. Well, you're doing a great job, and we really hope everyone's enjoying the coverage here. Look at you hitting that local line. I love it. And make sure to hit like and subscribe if you're liking the content. And thanks again to our major sponsors of this event. We got Rook Athletics Apparel, our good friend Seth Brown. We got Hatch House Barbecue. We have Greatest Media Team. We have Aha Shack. Don't forget, we also have your favorite TD, Bobcat Buckley, who's been an amazing asset to the Charlotte community. We really hope you enjoy the coverage. Come back for the back nine.